It's Tuesday, December 21. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gill. The Public Bodies Management and Accountability Nomination, Selection and Appointment to Boards regulations were approved by the Senate on Friday. The bill was recently passed in the lower house.
The new regulations specify the criteria for appointment of boards of public bodies following voiced concerns surrounding several state entities. Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, in leading the debate, noted work done on the regulations back in 2011, adding that even with these new improvements, more issues will arise.
It is a work in progress, and I do think we should all recognize the public good that exists in corporate governance as applied within the public sector. I note as well that at the time that I presented, my presentation referred to the 190 public bodies in Jamaica. And the brief that, of course, was provided by the current Ministry of Finance and Public Service has identified us now as having 146 as a result of the public sector transformation program, which is streamlining, modernizing, and optimizing how it is that we retain useful agencies and ensure that their utility is optimized for the public good.
The new regulations will, among other things, make provisions for persons to apply to become board members through the establishment of a database being housed within the Finance Ministry.
And I'm sure all of us in political life have at one point or another been asked, how can I serve? How can I become a part of public service, to serve on a board? And now it is that persons can, if they do believe that they have the appropriate skills and competencies, that they can apply to they will be able to, rather, on the passage of this and the passage of the relevant time period, to apply to the Financial Secretary for consideration for selection.
Some of the regulations will begin to come into effect 4 months after being gazetted, while others should come into effect 10 months after.
So the process of establishing the Secretariat, recruiting the persons who the Financial Secretary will work with or who will work for the Financial Secretary in terms of the hiring and staff to implement the work of the database and its management, that process will certainly come into effect after the 4-month period.
The Public Bodies Management and Accountability Nomination, Selection and Appointment to Boards regulations are set to come into effect within the next financial year.
Edward Gabbidon has stepped down from his post as board chairman of the Heart NSTA Trust. Mr. Gabbidon's resignation comes amid concerns of conflict of interest regarding the entity's relationship with his company, Syncon Technologies. Prime Minister Andrew Holness, in a short statement on Monday, thanked Gabbidon for his service and said a new board chairman will be named soon. Science, Energy and Technology Minister Daryl Vaz says the Universal Service Fund, the USF, is on track to establish 189 additional community Wi-Fi hotspots island-wide by the end of the financial year.
Procurement guidelines are being met, and we will deliver the 3 Wi-Fi hotspots to the 63 constituencies, totaling 189. And of course continue to work with the Ministry of Education in relation to the procurement for the connectivity to the schools.
The public Wi-Fi hotspot program, which is being undertaken by the Universal Service Fund, is a major plank in the government's drive to provide easy internet access for residents under the Community Wi-Fi initiative. Minister Vaz shared the news during a ceremony marking the handing over of $20 million to the Public Broadcasting Corporation of Jamaica on Friday. The USF funds are to support the creation of a second educational channel. PBCJ1 will be dedicated to delivering educational programming to Jamaicans on a 24/7 basis. Students from 3 primary schools Treadlight Primary in Clarendon, Trenchtown and Windward Road Primary Schools in Kingston are to benefit from a donation of tablets to support online learning. The donation is being facilitated through a contribution of $750,000 by the Toots Foundation to the non-profit organization Youth for Excellence, which has partnered with the Education, Youth and Information Ministry to acquire the devices. The Toots Foundation was set up in memory of late reggae icon Frederick Toots Hibbert. The check was presented to the ministry on Monday at its headquarters in Kingston. Education Minister Favour Williams says the tablets will be purchased through the National Education Trust and E-Learning Jamaica Company Limited and will be distributed to the selected schools in 2022. An event cancelled is better than a life cancelled. Those words of caution from head of the World Health Organization, WHO, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, as he addressed Monday's media brief on the global COVID-19 response. Dr. Ghebreyesus is calling for the cancellation of some holiday plans globally to protect public health as the Omicron variant spreads across the world.
It's better to cancel now and celebrate later than to celebrate now and grieve later. None of us want to be here again in 12 months' time, talking about missed opportunities, continued inequity, or new variants. If we are to end the pandemic in the coming year, we must end inequity by ensuring 70% of the population of every country is vaccinated by the middle of next year.
Come January 2022, the Labour and Social Security Ministry will be moving away from fortnightly pension payments to monthly payments instead. We get this plus our regular market updates in this business report from Gabriel Thompson.
In foreign exchange trading for Monday, December 20, the US dollar sold for an average $154.54. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $119.60. The pound sterling traded for $202.75, and the euro sold for an average $181.93. In Monday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 619 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall, market activity resulted from trading in 93 stocks, of which 40 advanced, 42 declined, and 11 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 23 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Stocks declined for Blue Power Group Limited, Cargo Handlers Limited, and Caribbean Cement Company Limited. Trading firm were 1834 Investments Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited. Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with 7.7 million units, followed by JMMB Group Limited with 1.9 million units, and Future Energy Source Company Limited ordinary shares with under 700,000 units. In market data for oil, prices rebounded on Tuesday after a sharp fall in the previous session as investors' appetite for risk improved, although they remained cautious amid the rapid spread of the Omicron coronavirus variant across the globe. Brent crude was up 84 cents or 1.2% at $72.36 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 95 cents or 1.4% to $69.56 a barrel. Countries across Europe were considering new curbs on movement as the fast-moving Omicron variant swept the world days before Christmas, throwing travel plans into chaos and unnerving financial markets. Omicron infections are multiplying rapidly across Europe, the United States, and Asia, including in Japan, where a single cluster at a military base has grown to at least 180 cases. Starting January 2022, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security will start to transition pension payments from fortnightly to monthly for National Insurance Scheme NIS pensioners who use the pension order books. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry Colette Roberts-Risden made the announcement during a recent interview with JIS News. She says historically NIS pensioners would get their payment via vouchers in pension order books totaling up to 13 vouchers fortnightly over a 6-month period. However, since the coronavirus pandemic, persons have been allowed to collect 2 or 3 payments in one. The phased implementation beginning in January will be done depending on the payment cycle. There are 6 payment cycles reflected by a letter at the end of the pension number assigned to each pensioner. Pensioners who are to receive their new pension order books in January 2022 will receive the first set of 6 voucher pension order books. This will continue until June 2022, at which time the NIS pension population paid by this method would have been phased to the 6 voucher pension order book. The Permanent Secretary is assuring pensioners and all NIS beneficiaries that this transition will not change the amount they receive annually, and encouraged NIS pensioners who are not yet registered with the direct deposit program to do so. And with that, we close this Tuesday edition of the Business Report inside the news on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
Here are some of the stories making headlines across the region. In Trinidad and Tobago, the Ministry of Health says it can't yet confirm whether the Omicron variant is at a community transmission. But epidemiologist Dr. Avery Hines is urging the population to take all necessary precautions since, according to him, this variant spreads very quickly. Sunil Lala reports.
We don't yet have evidence of established community spread at this point in time, but we continue to monitor.
On Sunday, the Health Ministry confirmed there were 2 additional cases of the Omicron variant in this country, taking the total to 5. And although one of the patients had no recent travel history or known contact with another positive COVID-19 case, epidemiologist Dr. Avery Hines says it's still too early to say that the variant of concern is at established community spread.
Now, that would suggest that they're not sure where they picked up this particular infection, and there may be other individuals. But at this point, we can't yet confidently state that there is established community transmission, but we will be continuing to look out because, as we know, the potential for that particular variant to spread very quickly is very high.
Meanwhile, Health Minister Terence Dialsing says government's move to expand the creation of safe zones to government offices and state enterprises is to guard against the imminent threat of the Omicron variant.
This is basically a life-saving mechanism. It is not meant to punish anyone because we can't go on reporting 30 deaths a day. You realize 30 deaths a day no longer impacts on the population?
He adds that additional vaccine sites would be added in the new year, which is meant especially for those public sector workers.
And then we'll be ramping up at that time. It doesn't make sense to add sites now because those sites will be grossly underutilized and we simply don't have the human capacity at this point in time.
Mr. Dialsing notes that many, including the business community, have come out in support of government's move to insist that public sector workers get vaccinated and reiterates that it is not a mandatory vaccine program. Sonolala, TTT News.
In Grenada, one major concern for the labor movement is what is being termed as the ownership of Grenada by ordinary Grenadans. Labour Senator Andre Lewis has impressed.
Labour Senator Andre Lewis has welcomed the imminent introduction of a land use policy which he highlighted will be instrumental in the realignment of society. Senator Lewis also pointed to the 2035 Sustainable Development Agenda as a major factor in improving the standard of living of Grenadians. The TUC president, however, stated that the ability to influence and manage access to local ownership of the scarce land resources must be had.
One of these ways that can be assisted is by making use of the opportunity that COVID-19 has presented to us. COVID-19 has presented a number of opportunities. one of those that we ought to make use of, is a realignment of our society, a restructuring of our society.
The Labour Senator noted that some of the lowest paid employees, despite being lauded for their efforts at the front line, are the sanitation workers, as well as the gas station attendants and grocery or supermarket workers.
And that is why Labour has advocated for the review of the minimum wage. The argument has been made that this is not the right time to do it. We hold a different view. And we are saying that the society needs to be restructured and the wages addressed so that our workers can not just maintain their standard of living, but can improve their standard of living.
Senator Lewis said the minimum wage must be significantly increased to ensure workers can have savings rather than the hand-to-mouth that has become the norm.
To help move our people out of poverty, using the figures that have been given for 2019 of 27%. And it will be higher now. These are structural issues that must be addressed. And this is something that we all collectively must work on. This is not just a call to the government. I want to repeat this. This is not just a call, but obviously you're in governance. And therefore the lead role starts with you. You set the tone and you set the pace. Let's work collectively to get on this. The private sector, the labor movement, government.
I am Gerard Joseph for TBN News.
In Barbados, the government has committed to addressing long-standing issues affecting the island's nurses. On Monday, the two sides discussed matters including appointments, transportation, and uniform allowances. More from Barbados today.
At a news conference this evening, Minister Bostic outlined several committees will be convened to address the issues.
We are also going to be establishing a committee to deal with the late and sporadic payments in the public service. And this is so because, well, the nurses have been complaining, and not only nurses, throughout the healthcare system, we've been having issues over the last several years. And these issues continue even though things are not as bad as they were back then, but we still need to do better. And this is a problem that has to be addressed not only for healthcare, not only for nurses, but throughout the entire public service. And the structure of this committee will comprise a permanent secretary, Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Director General of the Public Service, a member of the Barbados Nursing Association, the secretary, and we will also include some other persons to represent some other entities as well.
The Barbados Nurses Association is calling on striking nurses to return to work. BNA President Valerie Francis Miller made the call following today's talks with the Ministry of Public Service and health officials, which she described as cordial and productive.
Were matters that were being raised by nurses for quite some time over the years, and we have made some strides in which we have achieved some short-term things, we have some medium-term things, and some long-term things to achieve. And we have made some strides. So I believe that these are things that they have been asking for too as well. And today we were able to achieve some of these things. So I believe, and I would like to ask them to let us to return and let us come and negotiate with these entities so that we can push nursing forward.
In sports, we lead off with athletics. The fastest woman alive, Elaine Thompson-Herah, is now being represented by Andes Sports Management. The company announced their new client in an Instagram post on Monday. Andes Sports Management is run by Jamaican Olympian Marvin Anderson, and it also represents Jaheel Hyde, Rochelle Clayton, Natasha Morrison, Andrea Huz, and Christine Day, among others. Thompson-Herah is the 5-time Olympic champion and was previously represented by Agent Adrian Laidlaw. This is the latest in a series of changes for the sprint superstar. She recently severed ties with coach Stephen Francis and the MVP Track Club, which she was a part of since 2014. In other news, the sport of ATV riding is gaining traction in Trinidad and Tobago. TTT Sport journeyed to the Naya Valley estate to experience this adrenaline rush firsthand.
They may go fast, but ATV riders say they go anywhere. The club ATV Off Roaders TNT was established more than a decade ago in an effort to offer an alternative outdoor leisure activity to children and adults. So says founding member Vinod Suku.
I see the need for kids to be in the outdoors. Right, you find nowadays kids lock up behind a computer or a laptop for the entire day inside the house, and less kids going in the outdoors. When you bring them in the outdoors, you also have fun, and it's a healthier thing for kids, most important.
As with every properly run club, you cannot simply join them on a trail.
First of all, a few of the members will meet with the person who is interested, and set up. I'll meet with them. We have a few ground rules to meet with regards to safety and how riding style and equipment they would use, and then they would give them a test run with us and then add them onto our group. Depends on how they perform and how they carry about themselves.
These all-terrain vehicles possess the capability to traverse all types of topography, and the club adventures into every nook and cranny of the island.
We have some trails in south, some central, and some mostly north. The other ones are the better rides because we end up in a waterfall or a river or somewhere like that, and they're making a little cook.
Now that we have activated your autonomic nervous system, stay tuned for part 2 of this experience with ATV Off Roaders TNT, where we give you a hands-on experience of these magnificent machines.
And with that, we're out of here. Join us tomorrow right here for more news and sport right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.